Welcome to this Frogplum Audiobook series. If you find these chapters helpful, remember to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you don't miss the next part. Feel free to share this with someone who might need encouragement today, and save the playlist so you can follow the journey start to finish. This audiobook is for education and reflection only. Now let's begin. Introduction. If my mother could open this audiobook for you, she would begin with the same words she repeated to me since childhood. Your biggest fight in life is the fight against yourself. I heard her say it many times, but I never understood its weight. Back then, I thought she meant the usual things. Work hard, stay disciplined, avoid bad choices, control your temper. Only after she passed away did her message finally hit me. The fight she was talking about is not the world outside. It is the quiet battle happening inside your own mind. Every time I tried to change something in my life, I felt that battle. I would decide to stop a bad habit, start a new routine, fix a pattern with money, or finally act on an idea. I felt motivated, inspired, ready. But then, slowly and silently, something inside me pulled me back into the old way. The same thoughts, the same emotional reactions, the same excuses dressed up as logic. Not because I was weak, not because I didn't want change, but because my subconscious mind was already trained to keep me in what felt familiar. This book is about that place, that inner battlefield where your past beliefs, fears, habits, and identity try to hold on to their territory. And it's also the place where your future self begins. You have probably felt this pattern too. You decide, tomorrow I change everything. You feel energy, you feel clarity. Then a few days later, life looks exactly the same. Not because your decision was bad, but because the decision never reached the deeper part of you. That deeper part is the subconscious. It controls most of your behavior, your emotional triggers, your habits, and even your sense of what is possible. If that part does not change, nothing outside changes for long. In my own life, the subconscious has both saved me and sabotaged me. I have had moments when it helped me, dreams that solved problems, mornings when ideas arrived fully formed, as if my mind had been working overnight, and times when it fought me. Old fears, automatic reactions, and patterns that repeated even when I consciously wanted something better. One of the simplest examples was my back pain. For a long time, I treated the pain as if it came from nowhere. Then I realized the truth. The problem was the way my bed frame supported my body. My subconscious had been signaling discomfort long before my conscious mind understood it. Once I listened, everything changed. That moment taught me something important. The subconscious is not mystical or magical. It is a system of patterns that tries to keep you alive, safe, and unchanged. Sometimes it helps you, sometimes it limits you, but it is always active. In this audiobook from Frogplum Audiobooks, we will explore that system in a clear, practical way. You will not hear promises that you can manifest anything instantly. You will not hear claims that the mind replaces hard work, responsibility, or professional help. What you will learn is powerful and real. 1. How your subconscious mind actually works and why it resists change. 2. How your beliefs, habits, and identity were formed and how to rewrite them. 3. How to start changing from the inside out, beginning today. We will look at real stories of known, influential people who changed their inner programming. We will study classic ideas from the most respected books on the topic, and we will make each chapter both inspiring and actionable. Because if you are listening to this, you already feel that something inside you is ready. You are tired of fighting the same battle. You want a new chapter, not outside, but within. Keep my mother's sentence close as you listen. Your biggest fight in life is the fight against yourself. By the end of this audiobook, that fight will no longer feel confusing. You will understand it, and more importantly, you will know how to win it. Micro practice for today. Before moving on. 1. Write one sentence. The fight within I am tired of losing is. 2. And one more. If this fight finally turns in my favor, my life will feel like. 3. Keep these 2 sentences nearby. We will use them throughout the book. If you can begin this journey with honesty, you will already be ahead of most people who attempt change. This book will guide you step by step. Your subconscious can be trained, reshaped, and redirected, but only when you understand how it works and how it resists you. One more important note before we continue. Everything you hear in this book is for education and personal reflection only. It is not medical advice, psychological treatment, or a substitute for professional care. Think of it as a framework to help you better understand yourself, not a diagnosis or solution for medical conditions. With that in place, we can begin the real work. Chapter 1. Meet your two minds, the captain and the crew. There is a moment we have all experienced, and you may recognize it instantly. You react to something before you even think. You hear a tone in someone's voice and suddenly feel defensive. You open the fridge without knowing why. You reach for your phone without needing it. Or you arrive somewhere and barely remember the drive. These moments are not mistakes. They are signs that you have two minds working inside you. One is deliberate and thoughtful. The other is automatic, fast, and deeply powerful. This chapter will help you understand the difference between them, because the fight you have with yourself usually comes from these two minds not agreeing on what you should do. Let's begin with a simple picture. Imagine your life is a ship. On the deck stands the captain, awake, aware, scanning the horizon. This is your conscious mind, the part of you that sets goals, thinks logically, solves problems, and makes decisions. Below the deck, in a room full of engines, gears, and controls, works the crew. This is your subconscious mind, the part that keeps everything running. Your habits, your emotional reactions, your learned behaviors, your fears, your automatic patterns. The crew cannot see the outside world the way the captain can. They rely on instructions the captain gives them, especially instructions repeated many times. The problem is simple. Most of these instructions were given years ago, sometimes decades ago, and the crew is still following them exactly as they were learned. Here is where life becomes difficult. The captain says, "I want to build a new life. I want to be healthier, stronger, more confident, wealthier, peaceful." But the crew says, "Sir, that is not the route we know. We've been sailing the old direction for years." The captain shouts new commands, but the crew continues running the old program, because that is what feels safe and familiar. This is why change feels like a fight. Not because you were lazy, not because you are weak, but because your subconscious is loyal to the patterns it already knows. Let me share something personal. There were times in my life when I made powerful decisions. I would say, from tomorrow, everything changes. I meant it. I felt it. I was ready. But a few days later, I was back in the old routine, the old reactions, the old fears. I took this personally for years. I thought something was wrong with me, but nothing was wrong. My captain was speaking. My crew was not trained yet. Once I understood this, everything changed. I stopped blaming myself and started learning how my inner system actually worked. Now let's talk about how the subconscious learns. Your subconscious mind is shaped mainly by three forces. Repetition. The more often you think or do something, the more it becomes automatic. This is why habits feel natural, even when they are hurting you. Emotion. Strong emotional experiences sink deep into the subconscious. Things you felt intensely, fear, shame, joy, pride, become long-term patterns. Environment. The people around you, the culture you grew up in, and the messages you heard in childhood all become part of your inner script. The subconscious does not ask, is this belief helpful or harmful? It only asks, is this familiar? If the answer is yes, it tries to keep it. This is why you can consciously want to be confident, but subconsciously expect rejection. You can consciously want wealth, but subconsciously feel unworthy of it. You can consciously want change, but subconsciously fear what comes with it. Here is a relatable example from someone the world knows well. Before every race, Michael Phelps used a ritual called the tape. He would close his eyes and mentally rehearse every detail of the race, how it would feel, how he would react, where his arms moved, how he pushed off the wall. He practiced this for years. Why? Because in real competition, he didn't want to rely on the captain. He wanted the crew, his subconscious, to take over. He wanted his reactions to be automatic, powerful, trusted. One day, his goggles filled with water during the Olympic final. He could not see anything. Most people would panic, but he didn't. His subconscious had already rehearsed the race so many times that his body knew what to do without vision. He won gold, blind. That is the power of training the crew. Now compare this to everyday life. When you snap at someone, hesitate before applying for a job, avoid a difficult conversation, repeat the same financial pattern, or doubt yourself. These are not mistakes. They are rehearsed reactions. You practice them, often without knowing it. And because they are familiar, your subconscious serves them automatically. Once you understand this, something important happens. You stop blaming yourself and start retraining your crew. This audiobook will help you do exactly that. But before we move on, take a moment to get familiar with your own two minds. Not to judge them, but to observe them. Here is your first small step. Micro practice for Chapter 1:1. Think of 3 automatic things you did today. Something you said, did, ate, avoided, or reacted to without thinking. 2. Ask yourself, what old instruction is my crew following here? 3. Choose one new instruction you want to begin giving your subconscious. Keep it simple, like, I am learning to stay calm before responding. I take small steps toward my goals. I deserve good things. 4. Repeat this new instruction quietly tonight before sleep. You are not forcing anything. You are beginning a conversation with your crew. In the next chapter, we will look at how your subconscious was built, what shaped it, what trained it, and why it protects old patterns even when they no longer help you. This is where your inner transformation truly begins. Chapter 2. How your subconscious was built: stories, repetition, and emotion. If you want to change your life, you must first understand how your subconscious was built. Because nothing inside you is random. Every belief, every fear, every habit you struggle with today came from somewhere. Most of it was installed quietly, long before you even knew what the word mindset meant. Educational note. This chapter describes common human behavior patterns and general psychological tendencies. It is meant for personal insight and reflection only, not as medical or mental health advice. Think of your subconscious as a library, not a peaceful one with sunlight and soft chairs, more like a massive archive where thousands of stories, voices, and emotional memories are stored in the dark. These stories were collected from your childhood, your culture, your past relationships, and your emotional experiences. And the most surprising part is this: many of the beliefs guiding your life right now were formed before you were old enough to question anything. Let us start with the early years. When you were a child, your mind absorbed everything without filters. You heard someone say, "Money is dangerous," or "People like us never succeed," or "You are too sensitive," and the subconscious stored it as a rule, not because the rule was true, but because repetition made it feel familiar. If a parent kept worrying about bills, you learned that worry is normal. If they argued often, you learned that conflict is expected. If they worked hard but still struggled, you learned that effort does not always bring reward. You did not choose these lessons. They simply became the foundation of your inner world. As you grew older, repetition kept shaping the structure of your subconscious. Every time you hesitated instead of acting, the hesitation became stronger. Every time you doubted yourself, the doubt became more believable. Every time you reacted emotionally before thinking, the pattern became easier to trigger. Your subconscious is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to protect what it believes is normal for you, even if that normal is painful. Emotion plays an even bigger role. Your subconscious remembers how things felt. A moment of shame from childhood can echo into adulthood. A rejection you experienced at 15 can shape how you behave at 40. A painful relationship can teach your subconscious to avoid closeness, even when you want love. Strong emotions leave fingerprints on your inner system. They become patterns that your subconscious repeats, hoping to keep you safe. This is why someone who grew up hearing criticism often becomes their own harshest critic, and someone who was celebrated for being the smart one may fear taking risks because failure threatens their identity. Identity is one of the deepest layers of the subconscious. The way you see yourself becomes the blueprint of your choices. If you believe you are the kind of person who always struggles with money, your subconscious will guide your decisions toward struggle. If you believe you are unlucky in relationships, you may choose partners or behaviors that confirm that belief. If you believe you are not the type to be confident, your subconscious will keep you from situations where confidence could grow. These beliefs often start as innocent experiences: a teacher's comment, a parent's frustration, a childhood failure, a moment of fear. But over time, they turn into identity statements. I am not good enough. I am not capable. I am always anxious. I always ruin things. You may not even say these sentences out loud, but you feel them, and your subconscious follows them like instructions. Let me share something personal with you. There were times in my life when I was full of new ideas. I had a plan, a direction, even a clear goal. But when the moment came to act, something inside me froze. It took me years to understand that this was not weakness. This was identity. A part of me believed I needed to stay small, stay safe, stay invisible. That part was built long ago, and as long as I carried it, every new opportunity felt dangerous. Once I saw the belief, everything made more sense. I was not fighting the world. I was fighting the version of myself that my subconscious had built long ago. Now I want to bring you a story from someone widely known. Not to compare lives, but to show you how universal this inner structure is. There are many successful people who openly speak about their inner battles with identity. Some talk about imposter syndrome. Some talk about fear of being seen. Some talk about a belief that they were not the type to lead, to speak, to create, or to succeed. They did not overcome these patterns through willpower alone. They changed the story of who they believed they were. They rewrote the script their subconscious had been following. That is how transformation begins, by changing the story, not just the behavior. Your subconscious is not a prison. It is a room full of old scripts. Some of those scripts helped you, some hurt you, but all of them can be rewritten with awareness, patience, and consistent new experiences. This chapter is not meant to judge your past. It is meant to show you that everything you struggle with makes sense in the context of how your subconscious was built. And now that you understand the blueprint, you are ready to begin changing it. Micro practice for Chapter 2. 1. Think of one belief you heard often while growing up. Something about money, love, success, or your personality. 2. Ask yourself, do I still want this belief to be part of my life today? 3. If the answer is no, write a new one you want to practice. 4. Place it somewhere visible for the next 24 hours. 5. Say it once, calmly, before sleeping tonight. In the next chapter, we will explore why change feels so difficult, even when your conscious mind knows exactly what you want. Understanding this will make you kinder to yourself and stronger in your journey forward. Chapter 3. Creatures of Habit. Why Change Feels So Hard. Every person who has ever tried to change knows the same strange feeling. You make a decision, you feel motivated, you take the first steps, and then, without warning, something inside you pulls you back to the old pattern. It can feel invisible, automatic, and stronger than your conscious will. This chapter is about that invisible force, not to blame you for having it, but to show you why it exists and how it works. Educational note. The ideas in this chapter describe normal human behavior and habit patterns. They are for reflection and education only, not medical or therapeutic advice. Let's begin with the truth most people never hear. Your subconscious is designed to resist change, not because it is stubborn and not because you are weak. It is simply doing its job. Your subconscious protects what it knows, even if what it knows is outdated, painful, or limiting. Habits are the language of survival. Your subconscious mind prefers the familiar because familiar means predictable. Predictable means safe. This is why someone can stay in a job they dislike, a routine that drains them, or a behavior that hurts them. The problem is not logic. The problem is the inner system that equates old and known with safe, even when it no longer helps your life. To understand this better, imagine your subconscious as a security guard at the door of your identity. The guard checks every new behavior, every new ambition, every new thought, and the guard asks one question only. Have we seen this before? If the answer is yes, the door opens easily. If the answer is no, the guard hesitates. That hesitation feels like resistance, procrastination, fear, self-doubt, or sudden exhaustion. None of these feelings mean you cannot change. They simply mean the guard is doing what it was trained to do. Let me share something very personal. Over the years, I have found myself returning to certain habits, even when my conscious mind wanted the opposite. I would promise to wake up early, work in silence, or stick to a routine. But then the old patterns returned, almost like gravity pulling me back. At first, I blamed myself. I thought I lacked discipline. I told myself I needed more motivation, more passion, more strength. But the truth was simpler. My subconscious was trying to keep me safe in the only way it understood. It did not trust the new pattern yet. It trusted the old one, even if that old one slowed me down or limited my growth. When this realization landed, I finally understood what my mother meant. She always told me, "Your biggest enemy in life is yourself." I didn't understand then, but now, after years of fighting my own habits, my own fears, and my own comfort zones, I realized she was talking about this part of the mind. The part that protects the past, even when you are trying to build a better future. To show you how universal this is, let's look at a well-known example. Many high-achieving people have spoken publicly about struggling with self-sabotage. Writers who stop writing, entrepreneurs who freeze before launching something new, artists who hide their best work, leaders who delay decisions they know they must make. These are not failures of intelligence or talent. They are signs of a subconscious that finds the familiar safer than the unknown. Even people who reach the top of their field describe moments when the old identity tried to pull them back. Some talk about imposter feelings. Some talk about fear of being judged. Some talk about the pressure of becoming visible. Their subconscious minds were not trying to block success. They were trying to protect the person they used to be. Here is the core truth that most self-help books avoid. Change feels hard because you are asking your subconscious to retire an old identity. Not a habit, not a routine, an identity. Habits live on the surface. Identity lives deep in the system. If your identity says, "I'm the kind of person who always struggles with money," then no budgeting technique will stick. If your identity says, "I'm not confident," then no affirmation will feel real yet. If your identity says, "I always lose motivation," then your subconscious will keep steering you back to that pattern. This is why change must begin with understanding. Awareness is the first interruption of the old identity. You are not lazy. You are running a program written years ago, repeated thousands of times, strengthened by emotion and habit. And the good news is this: programs can be rewritten. I want you to imagine something. Imagine two versions of yourself. One is the version shaped by your past, carrying every belief you never questioned and every pattern you practiced for years. The other version is the person you want to become, more capable, more intentional, more disciplined, more free. Your subconscious is currently loyal to the first version. Your conscious mind is trying to build the second. This book is the bridge between them. Change feels hard because you are asking your mind to shift its loyalty. That takes patience, repetition, and emotional presence. But it is absolutely possible. Before we move to the next chapter, remember this one sentence: nothing is wrong with you. Your mind is simply doing what it was trained to do, and now you are training it to do something better. Micro practice for Chapter 3. 1. Write down one behavior you keep repeating even though you want to change it. 2. Ask yourself, what old identity does this behavior protect? 3. For 30 seconds, imagine the version of you who no longer needs that identity. 4. Say this sentence once: my mind can learn something new. 5. Notice any resistance without judging it. In the next chapter, we will break down how the subconscious forms habits, how those habits create your daily life, and the first steps to rewriting them. Chapter 4. The habit loop inside you, how patterns run your life. By now, you understand that your subconscious prefers the familiar, but knowing that still leaves one important question. How does the subconscious actually create habits? Why do certain behaviors repeat so automatically, even when your conscious mind wants the opposite? This chapter reveals the structure beneath the surface, because if you understand the loop that controls your habits, you can finally interrupt it. Educational note. The ideas in this chapter describe general behavior patterns found in habit research and common psychological models. This is for education and self-reflection only, not medical or therapeutic advice. Let's begin with something simple. Every habit you have, good or bad, exists because it solved a problem once. Maybe it gave you comfort when you were stressed. Maybe it helped you fit in. Maybe it kept you from feeling judged. Maybe it made you feel in control when life felt chaotic. Your subconscious remembers that usefulness, and once it believes a behavior works, it builds a loop to repeat it. That loop has 3 parts: trigger, behavior, and reward. This is not a theory. This is how human behavior tends to function. You experience something, you react to it, and the reaction changes how you feel. The subconscious notices the relief or pleasure, and then it stores the behavior for future use. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine someone who checks their phone hundreds of times a day. What triggers it? A notification sound, a moment of boredom, a a small spike of anxiety, or even the simple feeling of nothing else to do. That's the trigger. What is the behavior? Reaching for the phone. What is the reward? A hit of distraction, a moment of stimulation, a sense of connection, or even relief from discomfort. The subconscious sees the pattern. This behavior reduces discomfort. Keep it. This loop is the foundation of almost everything you repeat. Let's make this more personal. Think about a habit you want to change. Maybe procrastinating, maybe emotional eating, maybe scrolling endlessly, maybe doubting yourself before taking action, maybe reacting defensively in conversations. None of these habits are random. Each habit has a trigger. Each habit has a reward. And your subconscious has learned that the reward works, even if only for a moment. This is why your conscious mind cannot simply decide to change. It is trying to fight a loop that has been rehearsed thousands of times. Here is where people often misunderstand themselves. They believe the behavior is the problem, but the subconscious does not start with behavior. It starts with the trigger. If you only focus on changing the behavior, you are trying to fix the middle of the loop. But the loop will restart tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Real change begins when you identify the trigger. That is where your subconscious begins its decision. To help you understand how deep these loops run, let's look at a story from someone familiar to the world. An author once admitted that every time he sat down to write, he felt an urge to suddenly do something else. Make coffee, check emails, organize his desk, anything to avoid the blank page. He later realized the trigger was not laziness. It was fear. Fear that the writing might not be good enough. Fear that he might disappoint himself. Fear of being judged. The behavior was procrastination. The reward was temporary relief. Once he understood the loop, everything changed. Not instantly, but slowly as he began rewiring the habit from the inside out. Here's the part that most people never realize. A habit is not a sign of weakness. A habit is evidence of a loop your mind learned to rely on. Your subconscious is not punishing you. It is following the script it believes is most likely to keep you emotionally safe. If you learn the script, you can rewrite it. Let's break down the three parts clearly. 1. The trigger. This is the spark that activates the loop. Triggers can be emotional, physical, environmental, or relational. Examples: stress, boredom, fatigue, loneliness, criticism, uncertainty, fear of failure, even a specific time of day or a specific place. You cannot change a habit you cannot see. Everything begins here. 2. The behavior. This is the automatic action you tend to repeat. Sometimes it is visible. Sometimes it is internal, like negative self-talk or imagining worst-case scenarios. Behaviors are simply the tools your subconscious uses to get the reward. 3. The reward. This is the reason the habit exists. Not pleasure, relief, comfort, escape, safety, emotion regulation, identity protection. Your subconscious does not care whether the reward is helpful or harmful. It cares only that the reward works. Here is the breakthrough. If you give your subconscious a new reward that works better, the habit begins to change. Because the subconscious is loyal to what solves problems, not what causes them. It does not want to hurt you. It wants to help you in the fastest way it knows. When you teach it a better way, it follows. For now, do not worry about controlling the entire loop. That comes later in the book. This chapter is simply about awareness, because once you see your habit loops clearly, you break the illusion that your behavior is random or unchangeable. Your subconscious runs your habits, but you can re-educate it. Micro practice for Chapter 4. 1. Choose one habit you want to change. 2. Write down what usually triggers this behavior. 3. Observe that trigger once today without reacting. 4. After observing it, take one slow breath and delay your automatic reaction by 3 seconds. 5. Say quietly, "I am learning my loop." In the next chapter, we will talk about resistance, self-sabotage, and why your subconscious fights back even when you are trying to improve your life. Thank you for listening. If this part helped you, make sure to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and share this audiobook with someone who might need it. We release new parts every week, along with fresh audiobooks designed to help you grow, succeed, and reach the highest version of yourself. Self-improvement becomes much easier once you understand how it works, and we're here to guide you every step of the way. See you in the next part.